have like two different sections for this video topic. I know it might not resonate with a lot of you guys, but it might help some people out there when it comes to having your first apartment. I'm gonna start with the don'ts first and then end off on a positive note with the do's. So with that being said, grab yourself a drink and let's get into the video. So the first don't is kind of common sense. I feel like a lot of people don't do this nowadays, but some still do. And that is overspending on decor items. Even till this day, like, I regret all of the things that I purchased for my first apartment, especially when it came to like certain decor items. I had Buddha statues, I had pictures of lotus flowers, I had 98 plants in my apartment. Fast forward to now, I have nothing from like regarding like the decor and plants. I have nothing from that first apartment. I have a monstera that is struggling. That's like the only plant I have. It was a big monstera and now it's down to one small leaf. The whole plant was dying due to lack of sunlight here. And I also want to say the air quality is pretty bad in this apartment. But that plant is struggling. I have repotted her, I've tried to help her, and I am just so grateful that I don't waste my money on plants, especially knowing that we're not going to be here forever. And, you know, we're just trying to make it work now. And this is something where I wish I would have kept in mind with my first apartment. It's okay to add some touches here and there to make it more you, but don't overdo it. Don't overspend on decor items, because I guarantee you will not have that stuff in the next year or two. Like, you will end up decluttering it when you move out of that first apartment. Don't ignore maintenance issues. Most of the time when it comes, like for us, we have a platform online. We had like a wasp nest on the balcony, and I just like put into the I don't even know what it's called. It's like a website. We put in like a card, and the maintenance guy came and took the wasp nest down. Just don't ignore maintenance. Like, if I was to ignore the wasp nest, that would have gotten so big. And who knows, like I'm not allergic, but you never know who's allergic around you. And then there's also a lot of kids around this building. So I just went into like, we need to get this out mode. And most apartment buildings do come with like a maintenance person or your landlord. I used to be terrified to call my landlord. In my first apartment, I would never ever call her. I felt like I was bothering her. She also was older. She was in her 80s, so I never wanted to like bother her. But there was one time where I had it was a bulb that I couldn't reach, and I didn't have a ladder. I mean, it was just me by myself, and it was pretty high ceilings. So I decided to use my stool, and I fell off my stool trying to switch that bulb, because it wasn't like, it was an old-fashioned bulb, and it was like inside the ceiling. It was a very old apartment. I think it was built in like the 1700s or something. But moral of the story, instead of me calling her and telling her, hey, can you get someone to replace the bulb while I'm at work, I decided to do it myself, and I fell off the stool. My left leg had like a giant bruise. I was limping. You would think like I got into like an accident, like a car accident, because it hurt so bad because my leg got stuck into the stool part and it slammed into it. Anyways, long story short, I could have just called and said, hey, can you fix the bulb blew out. And that's another thing, like when you're living in an apartment, things happen. The things are bound to break and things are bound to happen. So don't be afraid to contact your landlord. Be nice about it. You don't have to be rude. They are people too. Just because they own the building doesn't mean that they're this like higher up person. They're human too, just like you. Also, when it comes to maintenance issues, the more you ignore it, the more problems occur. And you don't want something to end up being your fault when you move out. You don't want to pay for like water damage, even though it's not your fault. It's like the sink has been leaking for the whole year now that you're moving out. the cabinet is completely ruined and it just looks really bad on you, and you might not get your deposit back. So again, please contact your landlord or a maintenance person for, you know, to fix things in your apartment that is not your fault. Or even if it is your fault, be honest too. Don't forget about noise level. Every state has a noise level rule where after a certain time you're not supposed to play like loud music, you're not supposed to play, or you're not supposed to have parties, I should say, things like that. And I think in Mass it's either 9 or 10 p.m. But for the most part, this building is fairly quiet. I think this is like the quietest building that I've ever lived in. I mean, sometimes here and there you'll hear like all the kids playing, you'll hear some music playing or like vacuuming, but for the most part it's pretty quiet, to say the least. So I have no complaints with the noise level here. Now growing up, I've lived in pretty bad areas, and the noise level was insane, and the cops had to come. It was pretty crazy and very inconsiderate of those tenants and neighbors. So try your best to keep the noise level down. If you have friends over, like, just, you know, try to remind everybody. I know it's exciting to have your first apartment, have people over. For the 3 years that I lived in that apartment, I think I've had, well, my mom, her boyfriend at the time, my 2 sisters, and their kids came to visit me, and then also my partner. And that was it. Like, no one else came there, and it was very quiet. And usually people visited me during visiting hours, which was like afternoon, never really at night because I had to be at work in the morning. But I always kept the noise level situation in mind, because you just don't want issues with your neighbors or your landlord. And the worst thing that could happen is you could get kicked out, or the cops could come and you can get in trouble. I think they give you like a citation or something for if like consistent noise level if you don't listen. I think a citation or a ticket, I'm not sure, but maybe some of you know the proper word for it. But you know, overall, just be mindful of how much noise you're making when it comes to your first apartment or any apartment that you live in. Now, when it comes to moving out, do not forget about your deposit. And also make sure before contacting your landlord, before getting the deposit or asking for it, make sure the apartment is clean, everything's packed up, you left nothing behind. Mop the floors, vacuum. You don't want to leave the place a mess, because that also could affect your deposit. When I moved out of my first apartment, I made sure everything was nice and clean. I took everything out. There was no damage at all. Again, it was just me. So everything was spick and span, and I contacted her because I knew that she was going to forget about my deposit. That's another thing. Like, some landlords do forget to give you your deposit back, and your deposit can be from like $2,300, $1,500, $3,000, $4,000, depending on how much you put down for the apartment. When I asked for my deposit back, it was around like $1,300, and I didn't want that to just disappear. Like, I took really good care of that apartment, and even with me being shy and an introvert, I picked up the phone and I made sure that I called her and asked her, hey, everything is all set, all nice and clean. Do you want me to send you my new address so you can send me my deposit? Or do you want me to send you my bank information so you can just, route it into that account? She asked me for my bank information, and within like 2 weeks, it was in my checking account. So do not forget about your deposit, and do not forget to clean your place before moving out. Do not pile up trash. I know sometimes like taking the trash out can be a pain in the freaking butt. I know that. Like, even with living here, I hate taking the trash out because it's all the way in the basement and it's a little creepy. So sometimes I do get nervous, but then I'm like, wait, we need to take the trash out, because if you don't, like, bugs can come, the house can smell really bad, and it's not a good look on you, and also not a good look for your environment as well. So don't let the trash pile up, and do not let like Amazon boxes or anything like that, don't let that pile up near the door and, you know, constantly forget about it. Also be aware, like, bugs hide in the crevices of certain boxes, and you do not want to be that tenant to have to call your landlord and tell them that you have bugs like cockroaches or other, you know, creatures in your house due to you not taking your trash out, because that looks really, really bad. So pick up after yourself. And the last don't is do not forget to change your address. I know it's kind of hard. I've had some issues with this. When I moved, I actually moved to a whole new city, and I had a couple problems in the beginning. One of my biggest issues was that I wasn't getting any mail. Even though I did change my address with the post office, I didn't change my address with other things. So I thought, again, being naive, I thought with me changing my address with the post office, I thought everything was gonna switch around, and it didn't. So make sure that you switch your address with important things. Like, for an example, I never switched my address when I moved with my car insurance because I thought that the post office would take care of all that. So silly, because it's a separate thing. So when I bought a new car, the title went to the old apartment, and then I had to get a new title and a new registration, and again, it was a whole mess. So it was like months to fix everything. So just don't forget to change your address, not just with the post office, but with your car insurance, your health insurance. If you get any assistance too, like if you get food stamps, if you get electricity or gas help, tell them that you moved. That way nothing goes to the old place where you live. Now let's get into the do's. I'm actually gonna read off here so I'm not like rambling. So the first do is to budget wisely. Know all the costs involved: rent, utilities, internet, security deposit, and renter's insurance if you want that. Well, if some buildings, you know, require that, make sure that you have all of these bills in mind, because you just never know. Like when it comes to moving into your first apartment, if you only saved, you know, $1 grand or $2 grand to move out, you're gonna need more money. Trust me. It is not ideal to move out with, you know, emptying your entire savings. It's not ideal at all, because like I said, to sign up for internet, you need money. You also need the security deposit, and most likely you're gonna need first and last month's rent as well. Also renter's insurance. If you have a pet, most places do charge monthly for pets. When we moved in here, I was so excited because this was the first apartment building I ever lived in that was accepting pets, and only one. You're only allowed to have one, and it's just cats. Dogs are not allowed here. So I agreed, and I had to sign like it's like a kind of like a lease for my cat to be here, if I can put it in simpler words. It was around like $430 or $450, around there, and that covered the entire cost of him living here. Now some places charge monthly, and some places just give you one fee, so keep that in mind. And this is why I say budget wisely, because if you only budget out for the security deposit in the first and last month, you're not gonna have internet, you're not gonna be able to have like electricity or gas, because you need utilities, you need money to pay that bill as well. Renter's insurance, some places won't rent to you unless you get renter's insurance. It's becoming quite difficult these days with that. And then if you have a pet that's coming with you, one, make sure they accept pets, and if they do, check how much it is to have your pet there, because it's very, very rare to find an apartment built in that doesn't give you an additional charge to have a pet. So budget wisely. Always have extra cash on hand, especially when you're moving out, because you're on your own and there's no one there to help most of the time. It's all up to you. So the best thing you can do is to be prepared. Do inspect the apartment before signing the lease. Inspect the apartment and area. So this is something that I didn't know about, but I had someone at my old job told me, hey, do you want me to help you, go over the apartment before you signing the lease? And I had I was so clueless. And I was like, yeah, like, what do I need help with? Like, I was, again, very young. And, she was like, oh, you're supposed to look around the apartment, make sure all of the outlets work, make sure that there's no holes in the wall, no chip paint. And, they'll give you, like, a paper where you can fill out if there's any damage. It'll be documented. And when you move out, those items won't be on you. So it made sense, and she came with me. We looked at everything. We checked all of the outlets. We checked the windows to make sure that they opened and closed properly. We checked the paint, make sure nothing was chipped. The cabinets for like the kitchen, the doors for the closets. We made sure that everything worked. We made sure the faucet wasn't leaking, and it was really, really helpful, and I'm very grateful for her till this day for helping me. And I don't have grandparents, and I don't have many family members. It's just my mom and my sisters, and then also my partner's family. But when it comes to my family, it's just my mom and my two sisters. So it was really nice at the time to have someone care to know that I wasn't getting screwed over. That's very rare to find. So anyways, long story short, we checked everything, made sure that nothing was broken or, my fault, and everything was great. And then I just signed the lease, and that was it. I was on my way. So if you have someone to come with you, especially if it's like a big apartment, if it's a studio, you can look at it yourself and be like perfectly fine with it. But my first apartment was fairly large. I think it was large to me. It was around like 900 square feet, 985. It was pretty large for one person. At the time I didn't think that, but now living in a city, I'm noticing like I had it made in that other town. Yeah, so make sure you are checking the place out, and make sure that you inspect correctly, and also bring to check the outlets, bring your phone charger and plug it into each outlet to see like if each outlet works. That's like one of the main things. I feel like the main things are outlets and windows, and then of course your stove and fridge. Set up utilities early. You want to be activated before moving in. So this is another thing that I was so worried about when I moved in. I remember calling Eversource. In Mass, we have the electricity company and gas company is Eversource. I remember calling and being so nervous because I didn't live there yet. But like I said, that lady that I worked with, she was a lot older than me, and she just had a lot of wisdom. She was like, make sure you call before moving in, so that way when you move in, you already have electricity and you're not sitting there in the dark. It just made so much sense. So I called, and it was like, I called 4 days before moving in just to make sure that I had electricity and gas, and it worked out so well. So call in advance. Call 4 days or a week in advance before moving in. That way your electricity and gas, or whatever the apartment takes, is all set, and you can just move in perfectly without being on the phone with the electricity or gas company. This one is something that I learned with this apartment. Consider furniture size. We did not consider or measure the furniture size for this apartment. The only thing that we purchased for furniture ever together is this couch. Right now, let me like turn the camera around. So we kind of like made it into like a living space situation. It was like a long couch. Don't mind all my camera gear. So with the couch being like that is kind of the only way where it can be comfortable when people come over, because when we had it like the long way, it just made no sense, and this couch is just too big for this apartment. I know it will work out when we move, but like I said, it's been very, very difficult for us to move, and this is like the place that we can afford at the moment. So yeah, we're making it work with the mistake that we made. We should have measured it. We should have measured the living room. We could have saved money with getting a smaller couch, but we were thinking big, and with this couch would cost us like $2,300, I think it was. I mean, it's still going strong, but we didn't need a big couch like this. Even when we like watch movies, because we don't have family members here all the time because we live far, far away. Usually, like when we watch movies, this is hilarious. This is how this couch works. My cat will sit on this one here. I will sit, well, my partner will sit there, and then I will sit there. It's like we all have our own couch, but we didn't plan it that way. We thought we honestly thought this was gonna be small for the place, but it turned out to be a little bit too big. So that's why I'm telling you guys to consider your furniture size. If I was to live alone again, I would go into a nice small studio. I probably will have like a couch that has a pull-out bed, and that's probably it. And maybe even a table that has a pull-out table, because it's just not worth having some furniture items, especially if you live alone and it's your first time moving out. You do not need fancy furniture items at all, and you don't need the big things either. And the last thing is to establish a cleaning routine. This is something where if you weren't used to cleaning and you always had your mom clean your place, or your dad or your grandparents, it's now time to start your own cleaning routine, because there's no one else there to, to help you or for you to rely on when it comes to mopping the floors, vacuuming, doing your own laundry, switching out the bedding, cleaning the couch. It's up to you. So I suggest to, like, especially when it comes to cooking, pick up as you're cleaning. That's what I've been doing for years. When it comes to steaming the floor, I do that every Sunday. When it comes to vacuuming, I usually do a quick vacuum. Like, this is a small place. It's like 700 square feet. So I usually will vacuum in the morning before taking a shower. I vacuum once a day. I do have a cat, so his fur is everywhere. But just keep in mind of, having a cleaning schedule. You will be amazed on how things just start adding up the minute you stop thinking about cleaning. It's best to create a schedule, or to do 15 minutes of cleaning every day. That way you're not wasting your weekends deep cleaning like I used to. I remember, like, when I lived alone, I would waste an entire weekend deep cleaning my house, which was so silly because I lived alone and there wasn't that much of a mess. I think I was just like obsessed with cleaning. But establish a cleaning routine. It will help you out. Anyways, you guys, I'm wishing you the best of luck on your first apartment, and I will catch you in the next video.